When we think of Heracles, one of the greatest heroes of Greek mythology, we often picture a muscular figure, wielding a club or bow, defeating monstrous beasts and completing seemingly impossible tasks. His 12 labors are iconic, each one a brutal challenge meant to demonstrate his physical prowess and heroic qualities. But the deeper significance of these labors, when examined from a psychological and philosophical perspective, reveals a powerful narrative of personal growth, transformation, and the internal struggles we all face. Heracles, often depicted as the archetype of the strong hero, faced far more than just physical monsters. He faced the darker, hidden parts of himself. Each labor represents a battle with inner turmoil, flaws, or fears that we all encounter as we strive for self-improvement. Heracles' journey is not just one of external victory but an allegory for the battles we all must confront within ourselves. Let's dive into the deeper meaning behind each of the 12 labors and uncover the psychological and emotional lessons they hold. Heracles was born as a demigod, the son of Zeus and the mortal Alcmene. While he possessed extraordinary strength, he was not immune to the struggles that come with human vulnerability. In fact, his story begins with the tragic and unnecessary death of his wife, Megara, whom he murdered in a fit of madness sent by Hera, the goddess who despised him. This act set Heracles on a path of atonement, where he would need to face a series of 12 nearly impossible labors set forth by King Eurystheus. These labors were not only meant to redeem him for his crimes but also to help him confront his inner demons and grow as a person. The first labor, slaying the Nemean Lion, is perhaps one of the most iconic. This beast was invulnerable to weapons, and Heracles, armed with only his strength and wits, was tasked with killing it. On the surface, this labor represents an external force that seems impossible to defeat, a physical monster with impenetrable skin. However, the lion also symbolizes the pride that Heracles must overcome. At first, he tries to use conventional methods, his bow and arrows, but they fail. The lion's strength cannot be overcome by force alone. It is only through humility, accepting that brute force is not always the answer, that Heracles succeeds. He wrestles the lion into submission, symbolizing that to conquer pride, one must sometimes embrace a deeper, more thoughtful approach. This labor teaches us that strength is not always about overpowering challenges, but about adapting and thinking strategically. Heracles' second labor, defeating the Lernaean Hydra, was even more complicated. The Hydra was a multi-headed serpent, and for each head Heracles chopped off, 2 more grew back in its place. This task symbolizes the struggle with anger and self-destructive emotions. When we attempt to defeat our negative emotions, they often seem to multiply, no matter how hard we try to suppress them. The Hydra represents the idea that anger, resentment, or frustration cannot be vanquished through force alone. Heracles, however, learned to control his emotions by working with patience and applying a more mindful approach. By burning the stumps of the Hydra's heads, he stopped them from regenerating. This represents the importance of tackling problems at their root, rather than just their symptoms. The third labor was capturing the Ceryneian hind, a sacred deer with golden antlers that could outrun any hunter. In this task, Heracles is called to pursue something that seems just beyond reach, representing the human tendency to pursue impossible ideals or unrealistic goals. The hind symbolizes that part of us that chases perfection, something that can never truly be caught. Instead of pursuing it recklessly, Heracles demonstrates patience and persistence. He follows the creature for a year, showing that sometimes, the most important thing is not rushing toward an ideal but moving toward it with steady, unwavering focus. This labor teaches us the value of restraint, taking our time, and not rushing through life to reach goals that can only be achieved through careful, thoughtful persistence. In the fourth labor, Heracles must capture the Erymanthian boar, a massive, rampaging animal. This labor speaks to the internal fears and doubts that so often hold us back. The boar symbolizes the irrational fears that we struggle to confront in our everyday lives, fears that are often larger than they need to be, just like the boar itself. Heracles' task is a metaphor for the act of facing down these fears, not with cowardice or avoidance, but with courage. He traps the boar, demonstrating that courage is not the absence of fear but the ability to act even in the face of it. The boar teaches us that we can overcome our biggest fears if we are willing to confront them head-on. Heracles' fifth labor is the cleaning of the Augean stables, a massive, filthy task that many deemed impossible. This labor represents the messy, unresolved aspects of our lives, the clutter, the chaos, and the parts of ourselves that we try to avoid dealing with. The stables, which had not been cleaned in years, symbolize the emotional baggage we accumulate over time. Heracles' task teaches us that, often, in order to move forward, we must first deal with the messes we've left behind. The solution to this task is not brute strength but ingenuity. Heracles reroutes a river to wash away the filth, showing that the path to cleanliness and order sometimes requires creative problem solving and innovative thinking. This labor encourages us to tackle the mess in our lives with resourcefulness and determination, no matter how overwhelming it may seem. Next, Heracles is asked to drive away the Stymphalian birds, dangerous creatures with metallic feathers capable of being used as weapons. The birds are a metaphor for the destructive thoughts and perfectionism that can plague our minds. Heracles' struggle here is not simply against the birds, but against the impulse to chase after ideals that cause us harm. The birds represent the tendency to set impossible standards for ourselves, leading to frustration and self-criticism. Heracles uses a rattle given to him by Athena to scare the birds into the air, where he shoots them down. This teaches us that we don't always need to fight perfectionism head-on. Sometimes, we simply need to change our perspective and approach. The birds teach us that perfection is not a goal to attain, but a distraction to overcome. The Cretan bull, Heracles' seventh labor, symbolizes the untamed, wild energy within us. The bull represents uncontrolled passion and impulsiveness. Heracles is tasked with capturing it alive, and this labor is a lesson in self-discipline. The bull represents the chaotic, destructive forces within ourselves that, if left unchecked, can cause harm. Heracles' victory comes not through brute strength, but by subduing and taming the bull. This labor teaches us that, in order to be truly successful, we must learn to control our passions, desires, and instincts, rather than allowing them to control us. The eighth labor, stealing the mares of Diomedes, teaches Heracles to confront his own destructive habits. The mares, who are fed human flesh, symbolize the parts of ourselves that feed on negativity, selfishness, and cruelty. Heracles is forced to face the uglier side of his nature by confronting these creatures head-on. The task asks him to tame the destructive aspects of himself, and by feeding Diomedes to his own mares, Heracles removes the source of their negative energy. This labor teaches us that overcoming negative tendencies often requires us to confront the sources of our problems, whether that's harmful behaviors, bad relationships, or toxic environments. The belt of Hippolyta, the ninth labor, represents the challenges inherent in relationships and trust. The belt, a magical object, is guarded by the Queen of the Amazons, and Heracles must navigate a complex situation of misunderstandings and conflicts. The belt symbolizes the need to build and maintain healthy, respectful relationships. This task reminds us that in relationships, whether personal or professional, trust and communication are key to success. Heracles' ability to navigate this task shows us that the strength of a relationship lies in mutual respect and collaboration, not domination or force. Heracles' 10th labor, stealing the cattle of Geryon, speaks to the importance of unity and strategic thinking. Geryon is a monster with 3 bodies, symbolizing the complexities of navigating multiple forces in our lives, whether they be different goals, relationships, or obstacles. Heracles' success here comes not through sheer force but through his ability to unite his strengths and work strategically. This labor teaches us that success comes not from fighting alone but from harnessing the power of cooperation and strategy. The apples of the Hesperides, Heracles' 11th labor, represent the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. The apples, guarded by a dragon, are symbols of the truth and wisdom that are often difficult to attain. Heracles' task here teaches us that knowledge is not easily acquired, but it is worth the effort. The labor asks him to seek out the wisdom that lies hidden behind obstacles, showing us that the pursuit of knowledge requires persistence, patience, and sometimes a willingness to face difficult truths. Finally, the 12th and final labor, capturing Cerberus, the 3-headed dog guarding the gates of the underworld, represents the ultimate confrontation with death and mortality. To face Cerberus is to confront the inevitable end of life and to make peace with our own mortality. Heracles' task represents the need to face our deepest fears and accept the parts of life that we cannot change. The lesson here is that we must learn to live fully, knowing that death is a natural part of the human experience. Through each of these labors, Heracles' journey is revealed to be more than just a quest for external glory. It is an allegory for the internal struggles that we all face. These labors are a mirror for the challenges of life, illustrating how we grow and transform when we confront our inner demons. By overcoming his pride, his anger, his doubts, and his fears, Heracles ultimately achieves redemption, not just in the eyes of others, but in his own heart. Heracles' 12 labors are timeless lessons in self-discipline, patience, courage, and self-awareness. They remind us that true heroism comes not from defeating external monsters but from overcoming the inner monsters that hold us back. The real journey of transformation begins within, and through our trials and struggles, we too can emerge stronger, wiser, and more capable of living the life we are meant to lead.